Hey, what's up?
From within, all the scum that we have to deal with, that hate our country.
Yeah, I got my headphones.
Bigger enemy than China and Russia.
All right, the military thing and the enemy within, like the comments are kind of next to each other, but it's not super clear. Well, over the weekend on Fox, Trump just came out and said what he seemed to be saying at Aurora. He hasn't desired.
Same here, but I'm playing as my my higher ranking character.
It's the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in.
Right now I'm fighting a bear, a grizzly bear.
The towns, the villages are being inundated. But I don't think there's a problem in terms of election. I think the big problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people, we have some sick people, radical left lunatics.
Money?
And I think that should be pretty easily handled by, if necessary.
Okay, dude, you basically go to your skills and choose your skills, and then you gotta choose your weapon you're using.
Alarm every American who cares about their freedom and security. And you know what's even more obvious than the thinly veiled
dude, you gotta choose the skills to upgrade your stuff.
To try and discourage Trump from admitting to this, as perhaps it's even too extreme for them. Hence the next level weapon gymnastics and pathetic pandering from Lord Ingram on the subject.
Okay, remember, go to character.
He believes the election will be fair and transparent, but he's not.
Once you go to character, you will see weapon mastery. And the weapon you chose for your class that gave you, you go to that.
Referencing some of your rhetoric, how will you restore faith in our justice system? A lot of people will say, well, he's just going to do to them what they did to him and get back at them. And
a lot of people say that's what should happen.
Well, that's right. Well, but I think punitively using government institutions is what got us in this mess in the first place. And our town hall that we did back in February, one of the lines that really resonated, I think, with people is when you said, my revenge is going to be my success.
Well, I do believe that, but I will say this, they have started a terrible precedent. We've never had this. We do have that in third world countries, banana republics, a lot in South America where they go after somebody politically that's we never had it to any great extent, really almost at all.
But you're not going to do that. When you get in office, you're going to look at all your political enemies.
No, I want to make this the most successful country in the world. But Clark, well, he's fact-checked the president in the past.
I'm just in mighty touch. They're talking about all of Trump bullshit lies. Monday I'm going to vote for Harrison.
Radical left governor has gone to all mail-in voting, making the state a political cesspool where even...
Problem is, it's just the black people need to learn, black men need to learn that stop thinking that a woman cannot do anything on their own.
Colorado's universal mail-in voting began in 2013, years before the current governor took office. By a house, Donald Trump is again making false claims about mail-in elections in Colorado. Mistruths and lies that have become baked into Colorado's Republican politics, even when Trump isn't focused on a state he lost big. There are no fair elections in Colorado. That state GOP chairman Dave Williams echoing Trump's lies on a white nationalist podcasters for program last year.
We've got to do that again in Colorado. We've got to have such a great tsunami that there's no question. There's nothing like
That's 2021 gubernatorial candidate Heidi Ganahl caught on tape.
Simple. It's called weapon mastery when you master a weapon.
Governor Greg Lopez, he called for an end to mail-in voting altogether. Although Lopez solely voted by mail once it became a choice.
We stand in line for concerts. We stand in line
For me, I'm working on my two skills. Focused on my rifle. The skills when you go to weapon mastery, they give you two choices to go for.
Conspiracy theorists into our county's voting system. The Colorado GOP offered her a leadership position working on election integrity issues. Peters was convicted this afternoon of felonies. Trump recycled the same debunked falsehoods after his weekend fundraiser in Aspen, posting on social media that it wouldn't make a difference if he was leading in the polls in Colorado because Colorado's, quote, radical left governor has gone to all mail-in voting. That is false. Mail-in voting was passed and implemented by a Republican Secretary of State before Democratic Governor Jared Polis ever took office. Trump's suggestion of fraud in Colorado's mail-in voting is also not supported by evidence. The Conservative Heritage Foundation has tracked 15 cases of confirmed voter fraud in Colorado in the decade of mail-in voting. The two most prominent cases were former state GOP chairman and talk radio host Steve Curtis, who was convicted in 2017, and then murder suspect Barry Morphew, charged with voting his missing wife's ballot for Donald Trump.
It was a bipartisan initiative implemented by a Republican Secretary of State, swiftly making him an enemy of the MAGA contingent because how dare you respond to their co-leader with pesky facts?
He was talking about sick people, radical left lunatics who should be handled by the National Guard and the military. And then later on in that same speech, he said that one of the lunatics he addressed was Congressman Adam Schiff. That's who he was talking about using the National Guard and military against radical left lunatics, enemies from within, people like Adam Schiff.
Again, Jake, I don't think that and again, I can't speak for him, but I do think that you are misinterpreting and misrepresenting his thoughts. I do believe, again, it's all around the fact that we have had an unprecedented number of illegal immigrants come over the border in an unconstrained, unrestrained fashion. The Biden-Harris administration has allowed it to happen. It was their policies. They did not fix it. And as a result, we do see a substantial number of folks who are violent criminals, folks who have been identified as national security threats here. And in fact, just 2 weeks ago, we in fact had senior people from our national security apparatus say that there's 15,000 violent felons in the United States. They have no idea where they are. That is what I believe the president is referring to. I don't think that he's referring to elected people in America. But
I'm literally reading his quotes. I'm literally reading his quotes to you, and I played them earlier so you could hear that they were not made up by me. He's literally talking about, quote, radical left lunatics, and then one of those lunatics he mentioned was Congressman Adam Schiff.
These remarks running from debates, canceling 16-minute interviews, and cutting his own town hall short to stand on stage listening to music while swords of people pour out of the venue.
Let's not do any more questions. Let's just listen to music. Let's make it into a music. Who the hell wants to hear questions, right? Isn't that beautiful? It's so beautiful. We played that in Butler, Pennsylvania. We had a moment of silence, and then we had the bells of Notre Dame.
Of course.
Go off, and then we had a great opera singer, Christopher, who was so incredible. He's a great opera singer.
It's clear the wheels aren't just wobbly. They're close to falling off.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas.
Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about 10 horror movies that I highly recommend. And with that, let's get to the list.
But there are who speak up. There are no the voice.
Is a 2024 supernatural horror movie, co-written and directed by Aaron Fradkin. It stars Victoria Fradkin, Nicholas Robin, and Bob Gallagher. Over 60 years, 3 guests of a cursed home discover an eternal witch that lives beneath it, with an insatiable thirst for human souls.
My name is Harold J. Weems. I have been hiding something all of these years. I know exactly who's responsible for the death of my wife.
I had a number of you guys recommend this to me over the last month or so, and I finally got around to checking it out, and I'm so glad that I did, because this is one of my favorite
go join the syndicate,
to the syndicate. No one's talking about this movie, which is part of why it took me a while to even check it out. For one, it's a rental, and I generally don't watch rentals just because they're harder for you guys to be able to watch, so I don't recommend them as often as I would something that's streaming on Netflix or Shudder or Tubi, whatever. But in this case, I think it's absolutely worth a rental cost. But I'm sure it'll drop before too long on one of the streaming services as well. But this movie is so much fun. It's creepy, it's disturbing, it's surprising, the practical effects are well done. It is a very small movie, so you gotta keep your expectations in check. But if you go into this expecting just a hidden gem, something that's interesting, then I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Just the whole way this movie is put together is very entertaining. It's hard to even put into words exactly what makes this special, and partially due to the practical effects, some of it is the way it's edited together, because some of it is found footage style, but then there's plenty of it that's not, and the way they marry the two works really well. But I had an absolute blast with this creepy little gem, and it's one that I highly, highly recommend.
Wow. Yeah. Trippy.
It's What's Inside is a 2024 comedy sci-fi thriller, written and directed by Greg Jardin. It stars Brittany O'Grady, James Morosini, and Gavin Leatherwood. A pre-wedding party descends into an existential nightmare when an estranged friend shows up with a mysterious suitcase.
If you think of your brain as a hard drive, and this just transfers the files.
Oh my god.
So this is one of the biggest surprises I've had so far this year, because I did not expect to like this movie at all, much less love it. And I absolutely love this movie. It is so entertaining. It's so fun. It is comedic, but not in an overtly comedy kind of way. It's not like they're telling jokes or it's goofy or any of that. It's just situational humor, things that people say in a certain situation that catch you off guard. A lot of it is a dark, black sense of humor. So you gotta be a little bit patient with this, especially if you're a little bit older like I am, because it is mostly a young cast, like people in their early 20s right out of college. So it does have a little bit of that almost CW feel to it when it gets going. But if you're patient and wait with it, it's worth it, because it quickly becomes something very different. For one, the dialogue, the way this movie is written, is really, really well executed. These feel like real people, real friends, real relationships, the things that people say to each other, the squabbles that couples have in it, everything feels authentic, and I quickly was able to identify with these characters and feel like I've been there. Maybe I'm older than that now, but this feels like things I've experienced. And so because of that, you care about the characters, care about the situation, and quickly you're sucked into this. But when it goes for it, I mean it goes for it. It gets dark, it gets twisted, very uncomfortable and gruesome at times, but it'll make your head spin because it goes in so many crazy sci-fi-ish types of directions. It gets hard to follow, but in a fun way, and at the end of it, your head is spinning, but you really enjoyed the time you spent with it. So if you're looking for something to not take too serious and have a good time with, I think this is the perfect pick.
Jester carried the curse of being able to read between the lines. It meant that he wasn't able to reach that blessed, silent state of mind he needed to fall into to do his job. At first, Umbral left the words "super soldier" out of the briefings. After all, it just wouldn't do for one of Umbral's elite teams to worry about their potential replacements. But Umbral was hitting a wall, and gleaning just scraps of information with each mission. They needed more. Something more substantial. And for that, Ares would have to be in the loop. At this point, the Special Operations team knew the end goal of most of their recent missions. One of the prototypes, Raptor, walked among them. Jester was surprised to realize that he wasn't bothered when he first discovered that Umbral was actively trying to invent human war machines. Extreme strength, durability, and speed were never going to make up for smarts. As Jester looked around at the rest of his team, he once more concluded that he was the brain of this operation. Not that the others were dumb, not even the increasingly dense assignment. But Jester's cockiness wasn't just an act of a way to cover up the random mental issues that were actively trying to pound down the doors of his mind. He really believed that he was extraordinary. It all had to do with the way he saw the world, the delicate and intricate ways that everything connected and moved. Understanding how his environment was built and how it functioned made it much easier to blow it all to dust. When the orders came down that Ares was being deployed to the Ural Mountains in Russia to investigate a subterranean abandoned Volga outpost, Jester felt a thrill. The last time they had been underground, it would have been some sort of diplomatic incident to blow the thing to rubble. Man-made tunnels and caverns under the Ural Mountains, on the other hand, were fair game. And such a breath of fresh air from the never-ending parade of buildings, labs, armories, and whatever else he was tasked with tearing apart. Lately, Ares felt to him like a wound that might not be healed, but had at least been stitched up somewhat over the past month. Raptor's harsh edges after his return hadn't exactly softened, but he knew that he got better results from the rest of the team if he kept them under wraps. Aegis was still in the doghouse for the Genesis incident with Sentinel, Raptor, and Hawkeye. It was impossible for any of them to hate their medic forever. Jester thought it was stupid they had held on to their fury with her as long as they did. Not much sense in pissing off the one person qualified to dig a bullet out of you if need be. Tempest, on the other hand, was the perfect combination of aloof and violent. She essentially got no blowback from Aegis' right hand in getting the kid out. For a minute, it looked like she and Hawkeye were going to have to beat the hell out of each other just to get it out of their systems. But even those two had more or less mellowed out. Well, their working relationship had mellowed out. Hawkeye on his own was still devastatingly effective at his job, and after whatever chip Umbral had given had been removed, it seemed like he would go back to a silent, hulking shadow. For the most part, that was true, but he was still holding on to some odd sort of paranoia, not in the field, but out of it. Jester caught him sometimes watching the robot like a frightened dog, whale-eyed and hackles up. All in all, though, they were functioning, not at each other's throats, and cohesive. It was good enough to let Jester overlook that Umbral was sending them out to find the genetic pieces for their Frankenstein replacements. Sentinel had briefed them about their mission on the way over, and it was fairly straightforward. Infiltrate the abandoned underground crater research station in the Ural Mountains, recover critical research from their super soldier program, and secure control of a thermal energy source that had been used to power the research station. Umbral believes that the thermal energy source has a lot more potential than what it was being used for. Umbral never got what they really wanted from the Project Genesis mission, but the immense amount of data they had been able to retrieve from the facility had given them the location of Crater Station. It seemed to be the second arm of a rival megacorporation's genetic engineering program. For Genesis, the goal had been manipulating the human brain to do the impossible. At Crater Underground Research Station, they focused on gene editing, using the thermal power source to work under the radar to create the strongest warriors possible. It seemed that Crater Station had been active for years, and there was no available information on what caused it to be abandoned. All of Umbro's preliminary investigations suggest that it's no longer being used for its intended purpose. Still, there had to be something down there keeping Volga from reclaiming their site right away. Of course, there were a few signs of life. Why else would they send Ares in? Ares was flown by private plane most of the way, where they boarded a chopper and were dropped off a little more than a mile from the entrance to the station's old service tunnels. The hike in had been quiet, just the sounds of their boots on the loose stones of the ground. The mountains were covered in scrub trees and short grass. But as they ascended, the greenery stopped, and all that was left was hard-packed snow and stone. They could see the entrance to the service tunnels now in the evening light, camouflaged to match the mountainside that faded after so many years of disuse. It was cold, but the wind wasn't biting yet, and Jester took a moment to take in the view. The sun was sinking into the horizon. The sky lit up like the...
Oh yeah, once you get a little farther, you could join a faction.
Maybe for the amount of destruction they were about to cause. Ares didn't have any...
For me, I'm gonna be joining another a syndicate.
Part 1.
There's the Marauders. There's the Covenant. Each one's different.
You're looking a little bothered scuffling in those ruins. You don't look like you've found out that you... But if you want to go up...
Once they began their descent in a Crater Station. So, when they reached the rusted, thick metal doorway, Jester stepped back and a sentinel motioned Exo forward. He still couldn't say he was crazy about the robot, but it had proved capable at the worst of times, and handy at the best. Exo grasped the door in both of his mechanical hands, stakes shooting from the bottom of his feet and anchoring him in place. The robot braced himself and started to pull. It took a good amount of effort, the rusty metal screeching and scraping, but Exo did it. He wrenched the door free and threw it away.
Welcome to
A stale air followed. Dust motes floating in the air.
Find in Oxbow. I
It was
have to
pitch
say,
black inside.
it is a very
Sentinel
specific
cracked a flare
squad.
light and threw it into the darkness, revealing what appeared to be a relatively intact tunnel. It had a bit of debris, but none that looked caved in. A promising start. A one Raptor, Exo, and Tempest on point. Sentinel started. Shoot to incapacitate non-hostile humans.
Look at what you
And shoot to kill
done
for
as a
all
great as for the rich.
other hostiles.
Fair on this town.
The team was all business now, and they moved like clockwork. It was easy when the orders were so straightforward. They all knew the job was never as easy as it appeared on paper. Jester felt his blood pumping, his fingers itching. He was so damn sick of boats and labs and spiders and monkeys.
Going to join the syndicate, and I'm going to be a criminal.
This was the sort of work he was used to, the sort of work that he loved. The tunnel was wide enough to allow a small vehicle, so they walked 3 by 3, leaving Jester with the stunning, awkward duo of Hawkeye and Aegis with him. Sentinel covered the back. We're coming up to the first checkpoint. There's a room up ahead that looks like it was some sort of security point.
Rifle, check.
Up ahead. Hold. Sentinel.
Rapier, check.
Ares came to a halt. Exo, check the room.
Please,
Roger
come.
that, Commander.
You look well equipped,
Replied.
and the syndicate could bring
Jester always found
time.
things always
I
slightly
see
jarring,
that you are new to
but he
the
got
island.
used to the flat
Aid me,
tunnels.
and perhaps I can
The
shut
robot
yes,
strode ahead into the
randomly.
room, his headlamp casting a faint glow on the walls. After a minute, he struck his head back out and said, "All clear." The Sentinel nodded and led the way inside. Jester followed. The room had obviously been some sort of security post, with a desk in the middle and monitors on the walls. The screens were cracked, some of them busted. A chair was on its side. The team took a few minutes to scour the area for any useful information. Anything? Sentinel asked. Nothing of immediate value, Exo answered. Wait, Aegis interjected, shining her headlamp on what looked like an enormous framed poster on the wall. It was gray with grime, but when she ran a gloved thumb over it, a swath of white was revealed. Sentinel, you said this was a research station, right? That's it. Move out the station. Yes. The commander was already moving towards the medic. Fine, does this map show a city? We were all quiet as Aegis used an old, discarded jacket to wipe the map clean. Once it was done, the silence stretched longer and longer. No one wanted to speak, because that would mean they were all seeing the same thing. And it was real. Finally, Sentinel spoke. It's less a city or a segment. Yes. Underestimated the scope of this operation. So, what do we do? Raptor asked, eyes flicking over the map. We are already deep enough underground that communications are iffy. Sentinel sighed heavily and looked up at the map. We secure the objective. We find thermal energy sources and eliminate any hostile factors. Then we get the hell out of here. Let Uncle handle the rest. Jester wasn't surprised. Sounds like nothing's changed. You're damn right. Sentinel turned and nodded towards the door.
Sure.
Let's get it done.
Hold on, hold on, well, I'm about to, as long as I get my silver. Let me get my silver real quick. Then, okay.
Always a shock to the system. A job that should have taken a few hours turns into something that might take an entire day, though. They walked in silence for some time, everyone quietly checking over their own kits and preparing for the task ahead. According to that briefing, the thermal power source should still be providing electricity to parts of the research station. But so far, all they've seen are busted bulbs and dark screens.